Hey you guys, welcome to a new episode of Food and the Single Guy with me, your very own AMARU. Now on this episode of Food and the Single Guy, I'm going to cook a traditional dish from my country yet again. And this is a requested video by my friend, one of my viewers here on the YT, Mr. Henry Court. Henry, this one is for you and I hope you'll like it. Anyways you guys, before I take you into my kitchen with me, I have to give you a little bit of a history lesson. Now, this dish comes from the Moravian Brethren. The Moravian Brethren are a subgroup within Christianity. Within every faith, you have like religious subgroups, okay? So the Moravian Brethren are a denomination within Christianity. And in my country back in the day, this dish that I'm going to cook today, Anitri Beri, that is what it's called, Anitri Beri. It's a very simple dish, it's a very wholesome dish, it's a very rich dish, but this is the food that they would serve after a funeral, because Anitri Beri literally means the funeral of the Moravian Brethren. Okay, that's what it means, like literally translated into my own native language. So one of the things that these people did was, at their funerals, they would all be dressed in white, like from top to bottom, white. And this dish is, the fact that they were dressed in white, that also translates into this dish. Because one of the things that you have to try to do is to get the rice as white as you possibly can. Okay, and I'm gonna put a couple of links in the description box below the video, and on screen I'm also gonna add a couple of tidbits of information for your convenience, just so you get a better understanding and hopefully an appreciation of this dish and the origins of this dish. Now, the Anitri people, that is how you say it in my native language, Anitri. In Dutch, it is translated the Hernutters, so it's derived from the Dutch version of the Dutch name of this religious denomination. The Anitri people were, you know how it is, I'm all over the place, I know, but you know how it is after a funeral, especially a black funeral, when you get back to the house after the person has been buried, you go to the people, the family that has now lost a loved one, you go, for the repast, and they want to give you something to eat. But because this is not a very festive event, this is not a feast, it is not a wedding, it is not a birthday, it is none of that. It's a very somber occasion. So this dish is also a very somber dish. However, I like to say however instead of however, because I think I'm funny. A cuckoo, I know. However, this dish is somber, but it's very filling, it's very rich, as I just mentioned, and you have to be very mindful of a couple of things. First of all, this dish is cooked with coconut oil. Don't use any other type of oil, use coconut oil to get the real deal, okay? There are two versions of this dish. One is made with the salted fish, that is the version that I'm going to make today, or the bacalao. And the other version is with salted beef. You've seen me use salted beef on my channel before, so you know what that means. Something else that you need to be mindful of is, even though you're getting rid of most of the excess salt of the fish, because that is the way they used to preserve the fish back in the day, and they still do. Even though you're getting rid of all the excess salt, you still have to be very mindful of your salt intake, okay? Because you don't want to end up with a batch of rice that is salty. That is not what you want. Something else that you need to be very mindful of is the fact that some people add coconut milk to this dish, or coconut cream. Traditionally, and I asked my great aunt, who's a black woman, who is like way in her late 80s, and she's still very sharp up here. She says traditionally this dish calls for the bacalao, or the salted fish, the rice, the coconut oil, and the onions. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so there's no garlic, there's no tomato, there's no okra, because I see a lot of people create their own version of this dish. And I always tell you, when I cook a traditional recipe, a traditional dish from my country, from the black cuisine, don't let the good hair fool you, honey. And you know, I don't like to use the word good hair, but I come out of a black woman, I was raised by a black woman, I come out of a black family, okay? When I cook a dish that is from the black cuisine in my country, I try to stick as close as I possibly can to the recipe. I don't want to add anything. I don't want to omit anything. I just want to stick to the traditional recipe, because I feel like when you're adding stuff, it becomes your recipe. It doesn't become the country's recipe. You know what I mean? So there. So traditionally, this dish calls for what I just mentioned, the ingredients: the rice, the bacalao or the salted fish, the coconut oil, and the onions. Nothing more, nothing less. That is what I'm going to do today. However, throughout the years, changes have been made, and I don't know when this happened, but I think in the early 1900s, that is when people started to add coconut milk to this dish. So, because they find that the coconut milk helps to keep the rice as white as possible. That is not what I find, but I added some coconut milk to this dish, and it gives it a different taste, a richer flavor, if you will. I tried it without the coconut milk, and it tastes kind of similar because you're using the coconut oil, but this one is a little creamier and therefore a little richer. So having said all of that, you guys, you know me, I always give you the history lesson when I'm cooking something traditional. Yes, because I know where I come from. I know where I come from, okay? And I know my stuff. I may not know everything, but baby, your very own AMARU knows his stuff. Okay? Now let's hop on into the kitchen, because we got a lot of cooking to do. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, you guys, so what I have here are the bacalao cutlets, and as you can see, there's a lot of salt in the bag. Let me see, can you see? Yeah, you can. There's a lot of salt in the bag, and this is the way they used to preserve fish back in the day, and they still do it this way. Now, the added bonus in preserving fish this way is that it gives your food a very distinctive taste, a very specific taste, and it's very, very delicious. So what we're going to do is we are going to soak these bad boys in some water, just like this. And you're gonna soak this for about a couple of hours. Some people boil this, bring this to a boil in a pot of water. Alrighty. So we're gonna have this soak in this bowl of water for about a couple of hours. And this brand doesn't require you to cook this. You know, sometimes depending on the brand, you have to put this in a pan of water and bring it to the boil to get rid of the excess salt. But with this brand, and because these are fillets, you can just suffice with having them sit in a basin of water, in a bowl of water like this for about a couple of hours before using the fish. And that's what we're gonna do. So in about a couple of hours, I'm gonna return and I'm gonna continue with the next step. Okay, you guys, so it's been about a couple of hours. What I'm gonna do now is I am going to rinse the fish under a running tab. But before I do that, I'm gonna pour it into a colander, you know, just to make it easy, make it easier on me. Okay, you guys, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna allow the fish to drain completely in the colander. Now, some people use some kitchen paper to pat the fish dry. I don't like to do that because the paper has a tendency to stick to the fish, and nobody wants to eat paper. So I'm just gonna let this drain for about a couple of minutes, and then afterwards I'm gonna show you what to do next. Okay, party people, it's been about 20 minutes, and what I'm gonna do next is I am going to pull the fish apart, just like this. Now, when you're all done pulling the fish apart, you want to end up with flakes that look a little like this, you know? You want to have nice chunks of fish, because we're not making pate, okay? So don't pull it apart into small pieces, because that's not gonna be good, you know. So let me go and wash my hands. and then we're gonna continue to the next step. Okay guys, what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna measure the amount of rice that I want to use for this dish. Now for this amount of fish, I am using about 2.5 of these cups. These are 150 gram cups, so in total I'm using about 375 grams of rice. What we're gonna do next is we are going to wash the rice. Now, a lot of people don't wash their rice, but baby, I come from a country where we wash the rice like so. And I don't have to do it because this is very clean rice. But when you're using organic rice, like from back from my homeland, you really have to wash the rice because, you know, you want to get rid of all the starch and stuff and all of the dirty stuff that can still be in the rice. So that's what we do. You wash it a couple of times, you know, just like so. And then you get rid of the dirty water, of course. There we go. Now what we're going to do next, we are going to add water to this rice. And we're going to add the exact amount of water that is needed to cook this rice along with the fish and all of the other ingredients. Because this is a one-pan dish and you don't cook the rice separately. You cook the rice with the fish, with the onions, with everything else, okay? So we're going to mix all the ingredients in about, you know, couple of minutes, but I'm done. But what we're going to do first is we are going to measure the amount of water that we need for this dish. For this amount of rice, and this works all the time, if you've been with me for a while, you will know that this is a tip that I've given you. I have big hands, but if you use about 1 digit of water all the time for all your rice cooking needs, you go like this. If there's enough water up until one of your digits, that's good. If you have small fingers, honey, use 1.5 digits of water. Works all the time. But it's not quite 1 digit yet, so we're gonna add a little bit more. There we go. Now you're talking. So this rice with the water is what we're going to add to the pan when it's good and ready to do so. All right, now let's move on. Okay, you guys, so what I have here is some coconut oil. I am heating this coconut oil in this non-stick pan, but you can use whatever pan you want. Now this dish calls for coconut oil, so don't use any other type of oil, okay? So what we're gonna do first, we're gonna saute the onion, and you wanna make sure that the coconut oil is smoking. Okay, it has to be very, very hot. That way, all of the flavors of the coconut oil are going to be released. Give that a nice stir, just like so. And you gently glaze them. Remember that this is not a very festive dish. It's a very somber dish. So that is why it's not embellished with a lot of tomatoes and other ingredients. So the onions look very good to me right about now. They've been sauteing for about 3 minutes now. On medium heat, by the way. So what I'm gonna do next, you guys, I'm gonna add the fish. Just like this. We're gonna give this a bit of a stir. We're gonna make sure that, you know, the fish is coated with the onions. Now, according to my great aunt, traditionally people don't add garlic to this dish. But baby, when I tell you, I so want to add some garlic to this dish. But I am trying to stick to the traditional recipe as best as I possibly can. So I'm not going to add the garlic today. And before you add any type of salt or chicken stock cubes or whatnot, be mindful that this is still salted fish, okay? It is still salty enough to flavor the entire dish. So you want to be very mindful of the extra salt that you're adding to the dish. Now we're gonna let this cook just like so. Do not cover the pan because otherwise it's going to stew, and that is not what you want. Okay, so now I'm adding the coconut cream just like this. Just make sure that the coconut cream is dissolved before adding the rice. So next what we're gonna do is we are going to add the rice. So after you've added the rice, you're gonna stir gently, and then you're gonna bring this to a boil. When the water is almost completely evaporated, you're gonna cover the pan and you're gonna allow the rice to steam for anywhere between 25 minutes to half an hour. Okay, you guys, so as you can see, the water is almost completely evaporated. Now I'm gonna add this red pepper. I'm fresh out of yellow one, so don't hold it against me. I'm gonna cover the pan and I'm gonna turn down the heat and I'm gonna let it steam for about, like I just said, 25 minutes to half an hour. Now when it's all done, it should look a little something like this. And this, by the way, is the fancy schmancy way of serving this, because back home, we just put it on the plate and we eat. Now, this dish doesn't call for any kind of embellishments, no chutney, no hot sauce, no pepper, no nothing, but I don't want my dish to look lonely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some pickled cucumber to the dish right now. Just like so, you know, just to make it look a little more edible, a little more exciting, if you will. And then lastly, we're gonna put the pepper right here on top of it, you know, just to add some color to the dish and some body. And not just that, you guys, you're also adding a lot of soul to the recipe. And doesn't that look good enough to eat? Baby, when I tell you I just had some, I am stuffed like a Christmas turkey. All right, it was that good. Now if you decide to give this one a try, let me know how it turned out, because you know I'm always interested in hearing from you. Henry, yet again, this one is especially for you. You've been asking me for the longest, so here it is. I want to take this time to thank you all for watching yet another one of my videos. And if you don't see me on this channel, go to my other channel, because I'm very busy working on my album. I've had a lot of personal trials and tribulations going on recently, so I've been a little absent from YouTube because I needed to focus my attention on those things. So if you don't see me on this channel, you guys, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm dead. No, you may want to hop on down to the other channel, AMARU Online, and maybe, you know, just possibly you will, maybe you will see me on that channel more often. I'm just saying, you know, uploading these cooking videos is fun, but it takes a lot of time editing them the way I want them to be edited. You know, I'm somewhat of a perfectionist when it comes to these things. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. Be well, take care, don't add crazy to the craziness, and I will see you when I see you. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.